Obama-appointed judges are trying to stop the Trump 2.0 administration from ending government waste, fraud, and abuse. And major legal battles are brewing that are going to ultimately be decided by the Supreme Court. But thankfully, many in the Trump 2.0 administration are doing the right thing. Like this FEMA official who ignored one of these clown judges' orders. A senior official at the Federal Emergency Management Agency instructed subordinates to freeze funding, meaning wasting our tax dollars, for a wide variety of grant programs, just free money to the illegal aliens, just hours after a federal judge ordered the Trump administration for the second time to stop such pauses. The Babylon Bee summed up what's happening the best with this headline: Sauron, well, really, what's the difference? Sauron appointed judge rules Frodo must return the ring to Sauron. The Marxist Democrats and their mouthpieces in the media are growing increasingly concerned that the Trump 2.0 administration is going to continue to just ignore these frivolous rulings from these so-called judges. This from the Washington Post. Defying court orders, Trump, Musk, and Vance appear to lay the groundwork. Well, good. J.D. Vance had this to say about these judges' rulings.
If a judge tried to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. If a judge tried to command the attorney general and how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power.
The terrifying warning signs: Trump and allies will ignore the courts. You know what's coming next, don't you? Because I always save the receipts, and I have the memory of an elephant. It's a clip of Joe Biden, actually multiple clips of Joe Biden, proudly proclaiming that he was defying not just some lower level federal court judge or district courts, the Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court of the United States blocked me, but they didn't stop me.
He's talking about the Supreme Court ruling confirming the obvious, that it's unconstitutional for the President of the United States to just start forgiving people's loans willy-nilly in order to buy their votes in an election. And this wasn't just something that slipped out. We all know how Joe had a hard time maintaining his composure and not just saying what it was that he was thinking, no matter how politically incorrect and how detrimental that is to his own presidency and his own party. This was something that he mentioned numerous times on the campaign trail during the 2024 election cycle. Here he is, reading it off of a teleprompter.
Supreme Court blocked me from relieving student debt, but they didn't stop me.
And here's Alexander Ocasio-Cortez, who is one of those crying about the constitutional crisis and thinks that the country's being taken over by a dictator. Here she is in the past urging Joe Biden to, well, ignore judges' rulings.
There has been thought, I believe, given to this. Senator Ron Wyden has already issued statements, for example, advising what we should do in a situation like this, which I concur, which is that I believe that the Biden administration should ignore this ruling. I think that we, the courts have the legitimacy and they rely on the legitimacy of their rulings. And what they are currently doing is engaged in an unprecedented and dramatic erosion of the legitimacy of the courts. It is the justices themselves, through the deeply partisan and unfounded nature of these rulings, that are undermining their own enforcement.
So you're saying the Biden administration should ignore this court, but what does that look like? What does that actually mean?
That means you're undermining our democracy. That means you're engaging in a coup, I thought. You know that a political party is a complete clown show when their leadership consists of people like AOC and now David Hogg, who was just voted to be the vice chair, the second in command of the entire Democrat Party. And no, that's not a joke. They did it because they think that he can help reach the younger voters. But many of the, if there are even any normal Democrats out there anymore, the kind of the blue-collar, old-fashioned Democrats, which I guess have minor Trump derangement syndrome, are concerned that David Hogg could actually do more harm for the party than good. Inside the Democrat Party, Hogg's election and the resulting coverage, the mockery, has been accompanied by frustration among centrists that a 24-year-old March for Our Lives co-founder, by the way, his claim to fame was that he happened to be a member of a school that had a terrible thing happen to it. And so then he built his entire anti-Second Amendment career off of that, which now is extending into just wokeness in general. So he has a million followers. They're worried that it will hurt the party's brand, especially in swing districts. And this is what a genius David Hogg is. Despite going to Harvard and graduating, of course, he didn't get in based off of his merit. He was invited, really, to come to the school, not as an affirmative action applicant, but kind of as a sympathy or a propaganda piece to use him because he had built his brand around the anti-Second Amendment. And so they did invite him into the school. He was able to pass. He just graduated like 2 years ago, despite having the hairline of a 45-year-old. Here he is responding to a post about Doge's Big Balls, the 19-year-old computer wizard who was helping to cut the fat in the government, the waste, fraud, and abuse, saying sarcastically, by the way, he's being sarcastic here. He thinks that this is like an attack on this kid because he's only 19 years old. Surely he got there purely on merit, he said, which, of course, he did because, I mean, despite us living in an idiocracy, there are a small number of extremely intelligent and genius kids and young adults. David Hogg obviously knows nothing about merit, and even the AI overview, which is Google's new top search result for most topics instead of websites that you have to link to in order to get information. Now they're basically just putting together a ChatGPT style presentation or an outline of the supposed answer that you're asking about. And the AI overview, when I asked it, because I saw this floating around on Twitter, you know, David Hogg accepted to Harvard with the lowest 5% in the SATs. And the AI overview, it may be 5%. I have to double check this because you can't always trust, actually you should never really trust these AI overviews, but it does respond saying, yes, David Hogg's SAT score of 1270 was below the average score of the bottom 25% of students. Doesn't say how low, so maybe it was 5%. Admitted to Harvard. However, he was accepted to Harvard because he is a gun control activist and leader. Stay tuned because there's plenty more to come in this video, but real quick, subscribe to my channel if you're new here because you're not going to find politically incorrect analysis and information like this anywhere else. The Center for Anti-Racist Research at Boston University, which is a code word for the Center for Anti-White Research for spreading anti-whiteism, is closing down. That is this garbage think tank center headed up by Ibram X. Kendi, which is a fake name which he adopted trying to sound cool like Malcolm X. His name is like Henry Rogers or something. Looks like Boston University doesn't want to get sued for their systemic anti-whiteism because the era of DEI and wokeness is over. Boston University revealed its CAR, its CAR, the Center for Anti-Racist Research, of course the Center to Create More Racism Against Whites, was shutting down in a statement released along with the departure of Kendi, a historian specializing in racism and spreading racism, who wrote the 2019 book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, which of course means just how to be an anti-white racist.
I don't think white people worldwide have really reckoned with how much their own personal identity is shaped by constructions of whiteness.
Says the guy whose entire identity, entire career, entire life revolves around his blackness. I wouldn't even really think about my own race. I wouldn't be self-conscious about being white if it wasn't for so many disgruntled leftist blacks with a chip on their shoulder about something that happened 150 years ago, constantly complaining about us.
And how much that construction of whiteness
is great.
Prevents white people from connecting to humanity.
I'm sorry, sir, but white people are actually a minority on planet Earth. It's hard to get these statistics because Google doesn't like to reveal them, but Grok is pretty good about answering a lot of questions that have politically incorrect answers. I haven't verified this, but this seems reasonable. I asked it, what is the percentage of white people on Earth? And it responded approximately 16% of the world's population identifies as white or Caucasian. You don't hear any mainstream political pundits or YouTubers or even Twitter personalities talking about the fact that white people are actually a minority in numerous different states within the United States now, and have been for some time. For example, the racial demographics of California consists of 39.4% Hispanic or Latino because of the decades of illegal aliens allowed to come here and have anchor babies, and then they have anchor grandbabies. Whites are only 34.7%. So white people are literally a minority in California and like a half a dozen other states as well. Asians, 15.1%. Black or African American, 5.4%. Native American, 1.3%. Multiracial, roughly 4%. And I forgot it was Black History Month because I haven't been hearing the usual grievances from all the black leadership in the Democrat Party and all the liberals until I was reminded after this mayor defends his $26,000 in wasteful spending, where he spent the city's money taking a tour of Africa. So now he's being investigated and had this to say about his spending.
I am so distressed and disappointed that the blackest city in the United States of America is heading into Black History Month with its all-black council tearing each other down.
We're not tearing you down. You took your black behind over to Africa for 20 days and didn't tell anybody.
This woman deserves a medal. And speaking of black grievances, this regular contributor on CNN's evening shows accidentally threw her own network under the bus, insinuating that they were racist.
I do not have the same opportunity as you. I know I don't.
And you know
and
that
I know
too.
what's good.
And you know that.
Let me just tell you about me.
Any opportunities that you lose out on is because you are an abrasive, loud, rude wildebeest.
I'm gonna let you finish, but I want to answer this.
I'm not talking about how you feel. I'm talking about how I feel. Me, a black woman in this country.
But not in this city.
And I will run. And if you want me
I'm a New Yorker, not in this city. You cannot say that. You can't say that in this city. I'm not
talking about New York. I'm talking about actually
let her finish.
right here.
Yes, let her dig her grave even deeper, please.
I got a law degree, a master's in...
That's Scott Jennings, by the way, a normal person who somehow is allowed on CNN.
Right here. I got a law degree, a master's, and 2 bachelors. Probably more education than all y'all added up together at this table, right? And I have always been the least paid person on payroll at every institution I have worked in. And it's not because...
the White House?
Even in the White House.
Well,
the Biden White House.
Is that? I don't think you worked for George W. or Trump.
Well, guess wasn't what happened when I was there. DEI.
You are the least paid person wherever you work because you are obviously the least qualified and the most annoying. Obviously, the Democrats are still scrambling about President Trump pounding a nail into the coffin of DEI, and the Washington Post is also upset that finally the businesses that allowed workers to work remote, many of them are mandating in office at least a couple days a week. And so they're very upset that diversity will suffer with a 5-day office mandate. Researchers say return to office mandates could hurt women and underrepresented black workers who are more likely to avoid companies that don't offer flexibility. I think what that means is they can't hold a job at companies that actually require people to show up on time. That is one of the hallmarks of white supremacy, according to the lunatics. Expecting people to be on time is part of white supremacy culture, Duke Medical School claims. But speaking of time, there still is time to get free shipping on any of my shirts and mugs from markdice.com this week by using the promo code DOGE at the checkout. DOGE in honor of the Department of Government Efficiency and all the great work that they're doing. So order a Christ is King, a Teflon Don, a War is a Racket, the Sorry No Vacancy Deport Them All shirt, or any of my awesome designs, all available in a t-shirt, long sleeve, and a hoodie, and a whole bunch of different colors as well. So head on over to markdice.com or click the link in the description below and check them out.